Hi guys, welcome to today's quick tip. We're going to be looking at essay writing. I want to dive right into it. Two common problems: never start my essay early enough and never have enough to say. How can we really get around procrastinating, and how can we really meet that word count? Sometimes students focus solely on that word count and it can be a little overwhelming. So how can we really expand on our writing? So the first one is when we're starting the writing process, we can start off really simply and just making sure we're starting off well is to define any unfamiliar terms. So go through and have a look at those concepts and really see, how does your textbook define those terms? How does your professor define those terms in class? And any other readings that may inform your understanding of the terms that you're using in class. Understand directions. We really want to focus on good understanding of Western academic writing and what these terms mean. So comparing and contrasting, looking at what is the items that are similar and different. Criticizing is a oftenly confused one, which is typically has negative connotations, but we really want to focus on criticizing, and being critical is analyzing a particular argument and then coming up with drawing our own conclusions based on the evidence that we've found. We will look at positive and negative aspects of the argument being made, but then our judgment must be informed by evidence. And so we really want to be able to do that too. We have a lot of different terms here. You'll have access to this handout if you need it. Moving on, exploring our subject, just taking a good 10 minutes and doing this as soon as possible. Once we've done these first two steps, we'll be able to follow through and really get a good brainstorming session going on. Free writing is just, all of these just set a timer for 5-10 minutes, and then free writing is just to start typing and just get it all out. And there's don't stop for anything. Don't stop for mistakes. And every new idea, just hit a new enter and enter on a new line and just keep writing. Brainstorming might be more of a mind map, or just keywords, and just writing down a lot of different ideas as fast as you can, just getting them out of your head and just really letting that free association just reign free, and no real judgments here. Deciding on sources can be easy if you're given one source from your professor, or they may just tell you they limit you to the sources that you've been using in class, or they may actually require you to do some research. If you're required to do the research, definitely work with a librarian. This is going to save you a lot of time. Meet with a librarian and let them help you to really drill down to make sure that your secondary sources are really appropriate, and it's going to save you a lot of time on your extra reading that you'll have to apply. Looking at categories, we really want to, when we're doing our readings, we want to fit our ideas, and we're going to be, as we're doing our free writing, we might find that we come up with categories already. Categories can be divided into two topics: disciplinary and general. General ones are your ones that are along the lines of, I'm going to analyze this in economic terms, political terms, and sociological terms, just those impacts or effects that has on a particular topic. Some of the general ones that we encourage, other general ones, or even more specific to the type of topic that you're looking at. Everyone in the social sciences, humanities, business, and science will always be, if you're looking at new theories or new concepts, you'll have the essence of it. You'll need definition of any new terms that are involved in that particular theory. How do they define it? How does everyone in that area define it? Then looking at the examples they use to support, they're making conclusions. What evidence do they use to support their theory? How did they come up with that theory? And just making lists of that and really looking and analyzing each of our reading. This is not only reading for detail, but this is reading for that structure, which will actually be another tip that we use in the active reading video. You can check that one out. Again, a lot of other topics that we can look at, and a common one in English classes is that we learn about all these terms here. This is literary analysis. We want to be able to analyze in this method. So using these as we read, and using those as our categories to really help inform how we're going to be analyzing our particular topic. After we've done that, we can identify any parts. How are we going to be writing about this? Are we looking at, what relationship are we looking at? Is it cause and effect? Is it process? Is it stages? Is it compare and contrast? Are we evaluating and making judgments on the analysis or the parts of this? A lot of people jump to this stage immediately, and this is where procrastination can set in, because this is, we need a lot of thinking to get to this point, and might not be prepared to think in this manner yet. So we've got to go through these stages first, and these are all excellent steps on just helping us start. As long as we can start that process, and as long as we start thinking early, it's only going to make our writing that much better. The more thinking we can do, the better it's going to inform our writing, because our writing is going to be a clear and concise version of our thinking. that we've put in. So the earlier we can do these small steps to get our thinking going and really fired up, and eventually we'll get down to this identifying the parts and finding out how we're going to be writing about this. One fun way that I've really started encouraging and seeing great performances by students, and using myself, and actually have seen a professor actually do their notes in class this way, is called the flat outline. We don't have any, we may know the categories, but as we're reading, we're not writing, we don't have an argument yet. We're only starting reading. This is before an essay's even been issued. Every time we read, we should be writing, we're taking notes, we're highlighting things that we think are important about that argument. We could be using those general categories that we mentioned before. A good way to look at it would be to come up with this kind of table and just have, here's my title of my reading, what's the essence of the argument, what are the key definitions, what are the evidence that supports and examples that support the conclusions that the person is drawing. And we could use this to guide our reading. This is a great way just to make a list of that every time we read. But also, does anything that jumps out as being interesting or strange? This here is, we're just trying to find out, we can find out the structure that way, and we can also find out what we're interested in, what captures our attention. And then later on, when we come back to that, we'll start seeing, we might find some patterns. If we can organize them in metaphors or allusion, how we're actually analyzing it, if it's cause and effect, if it's a process, is this evidence, or are these reasons, is this a definition? The professor that I was mentioning before actually organized his notes around this kind of idea, and that one of the topics would be, this would be a topic, and then under each of the topics we'd have some questions that were for the class, but we also have quotes from the readings. We could then even expand on that and have, where's my example? Here is the example of, this is the particular topic, and then this is the readings that we had to cover in the class, or that he was covering in the class. And then you have quotes for some other topics that would show up, and then you'd have quotes from the readings, where they come from. Make sure you include the page number, so this helps with reference. But this is just helping us to not have a blank page when we start writing. This is well before we even start thinking about an essay topic. We're just making lists of things that are interesting, things that are strange, and anything that runs along the themes that how we're analyzing it. If we're in an English class, we know that we're analyzing for metaphor. We know that we need to include things about allusion or theme, and we can start to just put that as a category. Just put theme in bold, and then underneath it, every time you read, and say, oh, this is associated with that particular theme, and then we'll have a bunch of quotes that we may or may not use when we come time to write. It'll just stop us from having that blank screen and just having that cursor just flashing at us, thinking, how do I start writing? This is a great way. What we're going to do is we're just going to start using our evidence that we're finding, anything that's appropriate, and start to build the connections and find the relationships. And then we'll really informs our reading and helps us to think about it much better. Again, as I showed you before, record the page number and the source where it came from. This is important for citing and avoiding plagiarism, because these are not your words. You don't want to just join all of these together. You want to be citing these as your analysis. This is evidence for your thinking. This is what you're going to be using to inform your argument, and then you'll be talking about these. Taking a break is, again, a great idea. The earlier we start, and the more short in the beginning, the more short times that we start thinking about this, and having gaps in between our writing is only going to make it better. We really just want to focus on, what is the argument there? How is this affecting me? What is standing out to me? I found some things interesting. I found something strange. And can I dig a little bit deeper? If I was to argue one side of this, what would it be? If I was to have the opposite argument, what would it be? And then just trying to figure out what you'd use for evidence. How do we make it meaningful in format writing? So once we've started writing, we might have gone through our first draft, or as we're writing our first paragraphs, we want to just shift from describing to explaining. We just really don't want to be describing a lot of stuff. This is where we get really poor grades, if we've just regurgitated what was in the novel. If I just end up describing the story of the novel and no analysis, no interpretation, then we're going to get a very poor grade. We want to explain the evidence. You've noticed things that are interesting, but you want to explain, why are those things interesting to you, and how do they inform your argument that you're making? One great technique to do that is, every time we write a sentence, we can ask, so what? So what does that mean? So what's the point? Why did I write that sentence? It's a wonderful way to encourage us to really think about the information that we're putting down, and then to add in our own ideas and our own judgments in that case, based on what I'm writing. Again, another way to really make sure that our writing is meaningful, we can use structure. So we're going to look at those things in turn. I'm into fantasy football right now, and Antonio Brown, one of my favorite players, I'm going to use him as an example here. Antonio Brown is the best wide receiver in the NFL. That's a conclusion. That's my thesis. That's my opinion in this. I'm saying, hey, no, he is the best wide receiver. Okay. Some people are going to say, so what? What does that mean? Well, he has a 4.4-second 40-yard dash and averages 17 yards per catch. Again, if I look at the sentence and use the so what method, that all I'm doing is describing statistics here. Am I explaining? Yes, these might be interpreted as reasons. These are my reasons. I might tell you that if you say, so what does that mean? I'll say, well, these are my reasons that he's the best wide receiver. So why does 4.4 second, what does a 4.4 second 40-yard dash even mean? What does that mean? So we have to interpret what this means. We can think of the analogy of a lawyer in a courtroom. The lawyer doesn't go up there and just say that there is the suspect and they are the murderer. My reason is, here is the murder weapon, and we show the murder weapon. We don't just say, here's the knife and it's got blood on it. We need to interpret it. We need to explain this to the jury. So think of that as you're trying to explain your evidence. You don't want to just describe your evidence. You want to say, hey, he's really fast, and most of the catches he gets are quite long. So this might imply that he's got a very good quarterback as well that helps him out. So maybe he's the best because he is backed up by a good quarterback. He's the best wide receiver because he's one of the fastest wide receivers. These are the implications that are missing right now. Another example from an essay that a student that I was working with has another wonderful description here, but it's just describing a scene from the novel. What we need to do is we need to add some interpretation. So asking the student, so what? What does this even mean? What's the point of you telling me this? What's this evidence for? So explaining your evidence, and it goes through to try and demonstrate it. Next, we can look at structure as well. We'll always go from broader down to a lot more detail and we want to dig deeper into saying, okay, here's my topic. I'm going to have a claim or a thesis about that topic. And so from there, I'm going to have reasons for my argument. This is my opinion in this case. This is what I'm stating about that topic. And then I'm going to have a reasons for it. And then I'm going to have evidence for those reasons. In the case that this might be the same thing, our reasons might be our evidence, or we might dive down into a few more. If we're looking at secondary sources, we might have statistics or other data that will reinforce my reasons for my argument. And then we want to make those implications. We want to interpret and focus on the implications of that evidence. What does that mean? So what? This is your evidence. So what? What does that mean? An example we could look at is a needle exchange. A needle exchange is a place where people that are on drugs are able to get clean needles if they bring in their dirty ones. So this here helps to decrease a lot of disease, and also they might include a lot of counseling too, and help people get back on their feet and get into a rehab program. The argument here is going to be they need to be abolished. That's going to be my claim on my thesis. This is the topic. Needle exchanges need to be abolished. They need to be gotten rid of. What are my reasons for this? Well, they cause more people to start using drugs. They're going to find that this is my main reason. It's going to cause more people to use drugs. I may then dive into the research and find some facts and some other data from the research that helps to support this claim. But if we just look at this claim on here, what's the missing interpretation? If I'm trying to find that warrant, if I really want to solidify this, what do I mean by it causes more people to use drugs? If it's causing more people to use drugs, it's really taking drugs as being a risky behavior and making it a lot more safer, which in this case, this person believes that it's going to encourage more people to engage in it. Well, now I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to have that catch a terrible disease. So it's going to make it a little bit easier. So we want to explain this here. This is going and helping us to dig a little bit deeper. So looking at today's quick tip, we've got 3 things to take away. Make sure that we can identify your categories for analysis. You want to be looking at, am I describing this in economic, political, and social terms, or am I going to be looking at disciplinary categories? Start early and create a flat outline. Every time you're reading, just take away quotes. Anything that stands out as interesting or strange, just write it down under a particular heading. What is this an example of? And then just make a list, and every time you're reading, you're taking good notes that you'll be able to refer to. It'll save you a lot of time later on. And the last one is, every time you're writing a sentence, if you're going through and trying to review your first draft, ask yourself, so what? Make sure that each of you, this will help you to stay logical and reasonable as well. And it will really help to start making your writing, help you start writing, and help you to write much more meaningfully. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next video.